Okay. Testing 1, 2, 3. I'll tell you what, I was on a roll. You all should have heard it. Too bad you couldn't. Too bad you couldn't hear it because I had my dang sound off. I didn't even plug it in. Got to be smarter than that. This is Mike Cook coming to you live from Central Missouri. If you can hear me, let me know. Tell me where you're watching from, where you're at. I was on a roll. Y'all would have loved it. I wish I could repeat it because I was making it up as I go along, so I'll do the best that I can. Please, if you was watching the other video, forgive my sin of ignorance. Got to plug the microphone in before you go on your rant. It's a lot easier. So, let me start over. I can't do it with the same feeling because I got tingly. So, thank you all for watching. It's approximately 7:25 a.m. on 12/20/2020, the year that the conspiracy theory became reality, and it's a lot easier to talk about if you plug in your microphone. The microphone that's on my camera doesn't work, so I have this little microphone, and it works much better. So I know, guy. You're saying you're sorry, you think it's all over. I understand. I get that. I was after the results of last night, I really didn't know what to say. I really didn't know what to think. I thought that was the one. You know, I'm not a politician. I'm not an attorney. I was reading what other politicians and attorneys were saying, and it made sense to me. I mean, and I wanted it to work. I wanted so bad to go nanner, nanner, nanner to people's, the trolls on here. But it didn't work out. It really didn't. They didn't reject it on the merits. So they didn't even hear the merits. They rejected it because they said Texas didn't have standing. They rejected the argument that Texas made that they had standing. That made sense to me, the standing that Texas said they had. I didn't like it. Still don't. There's other hope out there. There's other hope out there. But I'm going to tell you, I've said this before in my videos. If you've watched me for a while now, even before I really got some traction and people really started watching, I've said we're not going to win this in the Supreme Court. Although I really, really, really wanted that. I really did. I wanted that. We're not going to win. Sidney Powell's not going to win this. Lynn Wood, Rudy Giuliani, they're not going to win this. Donald Trump is not going to win this. General Flynn, Q, they're not going to win this. The Patriots, not going to win this. It's not going to be us. We're going to be part of it. I'm assured of that. But it's not. We're going to win. I'm assured of that. But it's not going to be us. This is going to be done by the mighty hand of God. You know, for 20 years, there's been prophecies of this time right now from Kim Clement and Mark Taylor and others, up and even recently, massive amounts. God is not mocked. The DNC has stood up at their national convention and rejected God. They held a vote 3 times in a row and they said no. Look it up. It's on YouTube. I've played it. In the prophecies of Kim Clement, God has said, I've had enough. And I'm here to tell you that God does nothing in a vacuum. He lets his people know what's coming. I watch these videos and I read these things and my spirit gives me confirmation that it is true. I am not a prophet. I have no prophecies. I've had no dreams. I've had no intuitions. I just listen to what somebody, now, mind you, I listen to some reject him out of hand. I'm here to tell you that God is going to make something happen that they're going to talk about for the next 1,000 years. He's going to change the world order of things. He's the prophecies that have been spoken about this man. Trump said that he's in the vein of Cyrus and he's in the vein of Moses. Benjamin Netanyahu, I believe, if I'm quoting him wrong, please somebody correct me, but I believe he said, he called him a Moses, not Moses, but a Moses. Look, if you don't believe in this stuff, just scroll by. I understand. It's all hocus pocus and fantasy and all that stuff. Fine, whatever. I don't care. But I believe, and some of y'all believe. I get it. It's cool. You don't have to believe me. But I want to talk about just a little bit, give you some history. You know, Moses led the Israelites to the Red Sea. He led them down there, and understand that 400 years prior to that was Joseph. Joseph was one of the 12 tribes. Was it Joseph? I don't know. I get the J's all wrong. I'm dyslexic. Forgive me. If I'm wrong, tell me. Somebody correct me. Joseph, in the dream coat, the technicolored dream coat, that guy. Pharaoh had a dream. He was blessed by God to be able to interpret dreams. He interpreted the dream and said it's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. We need to save up in the plenty so we'd have enough in the famine. The Pharaoh says that's a good idea. As a matter of fact, I think you're the guy to do it. So he did. You got to understand what happened here. Read it. It's in Genesis. Just read it. But what happened was Joseph took the grain that he'd saved up. The famine got so severe, and it wasn't just in Egypt, it was worldwide, the known world at the time. And people would come from all over and they'd give them their gold, their finances, their money to buy grain. And when that ran out, they gave them their livestock. And when that ran out, they gave them their land. And when that ran out, they gave them their very person. They said, we will be slaves to Pharaoh for something to eat. The whole known world at the time, the world order at the time was that everybody was slave to Pharaoh for 400 years. And then Moses was at the Red Sea and they were hemmed in and they couldn't go anywhere. And the people of Israel were mad. They were saying, who is this fellow Moses? We're just going to go kill him and surrender because at least under Pharaoh we had something to eat. But God said no. You know, with Kim Clement's prophecy, you guys are hearing about China this and China that and ships movements and all this stuff. In Kim Clement's prophecy, he said, am I impressed with your weapons of war? I'm here to tell you, God was not impressed with Pharaoh's army. And he told Moses, go over there and part that sea and walk across it on dry land. And that's what they did. And Pharaoh's army charged down into there. And he said, if Moses can do it, I can do it too. And he charged down in there and God crashed those waters down on Moses. But you got to understand that that was the entire army. Not Moses, Pharaoh. I said Moses. I meant Pharaoh. That was the entire army of Pharaoh. But not only that, it was the entire government. You see, the generals and all that, all the leaders were part of the military too. And they were all family to Pharaoh. That's the way it worked. And they controlled the entire known world. And in an instant, the world order of things changed. And not only were the Israelites free, but everybody else was free. The comparisons by these prophets, the comparisons by other people have been Moses and Cyrus. And this is important because Cyrus did the same thing. He changed the world order of things. And in an instant, he walked into Babylon. Daniel was there to give him the scroll of Isaiah 400 years before, predicted just that a man named Cyrus would do exactly what he did. And you see, the Babylonian order of things was top down. It was a monarchy that ruled with force. But the Persian way of thing was bottom up. They allowed people to keep what they produced with their hands. They allowed people of different nations and tribes that were conquered by Babylon to return and rebuild, as long as they served the king of Persia. Including the Israelites, they were allowed to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. And God blessed him for that. In an instant, God can change the world order of things. And here we are today with the New World Order. Interesting terminology, don't you think? And I believe that God is about to do it again in such a way that the world will be shocked. I have a friend, a real good friend. We talk all the time. He is a patriot. He is a genius. He's got a great debt-free company, and he's a real good friend. He's a Facebook friend, but we talk all the time. We bounce stuff off of each other. And here comes the train. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. Anyways. But he told me that he didn't believe that God does anything. And he challenged me and he said, tell me one time in American history when God has intervened. So I took him up on his challenge and I told him a story. August 27th, 1776. The British had abandoned Boston and moved down in an effort to conquer New York. This is the Battle of Brooklyn Heights, the Battle of Long Island, whatever you want to call it. The British had 32,000 men compared to 1,900 for George Washington. George Washington tried to secure the battlefront there in New York, Long Island area. You know, the British were too much for him, really. The British also had their ships in the mouth of the river. Which river is that right there? Well, here, let me just switch over here while I'm telling this story so I can get it accurately and show you the map. This is the battle map of the day. This is the battle map of the day. It's the Hudson River. The British ships, you can see all that right there. The blue was the Americans. The red was General Howe's forces, 39,000 British redcoats. They attacked them on 3 fronts. You can see that there. 2 were in a frontal assault. 1 was 10,000 men that snuck around the backside. Their effort was to surround and destroy the armies of America and end that war on that day. The 400 men from Maryland, 400 out of 19,000, stood and held the line and saved the Army of America. They were able to retreat, crossed over to the island, over to Manhattan, where they were in headlong retreat as the British forces chased them. That night, they come up against the Hudson River. And the British dug barricades around them. They were hemmed in at the river just like Moses was hemmed in at the Red Sea. They dug barricades around, they dug trenches around them to surround them, to starve them out, because General Howe knew he had them. All he had to do was float his navy up the river. And they'd have them on the riverside, and they had them surrounded. They could starve them out. They could surrender. The war was over. The British had won. However, on that day, there was no wind. And the British ships couldn't sail up the river because there was no wind. And as night fell, there was still no wind. And George Washington was able to muster up as many rowboats as he can find, and a few at a time they paddled across the river and they evacuated the American army, 10,000 men, to fight another day. But as the sun was rising, you see, they'd set up encampments along their perimeter, and they had a few men stay behind with fires and making noise as if there were a bunch of them, so that the British wouldn't realize what was going on. In the cover of darkness, they were moving across the river to escape, to flee into greater America so they could, fight another day. But the sun was rising. The jig was up, and a large body of the Continental Army was still on this side of the river. Something had to be done. We needed a miracle, and a miracle came. A fog, a thick pea soup, can't see your hand in front of your face, fog rolled in and covered the river and covered the Continental forces. And they were able to sneak the rest of the army across the river on the paddle boats, quietly. You know how sound travels when there ain't no wind and there's fog? And escaped the British to fight another day. And when the fog lifted later in the day as it burnt away, the British forces were astonished that the Americans had just disappeared in the fog. Tell me God does not move for this country. He does. He has. There's multiple occasions of that. 4 months later, the Battle of Trenton, George Washington crosses the Delaware, and the beginning of the end for the British Empire. Not just, understand, the beginning of the end of the British Empire. Not just in Americas. God is a God of miracles. If there was a wind, the American army would have been toast. If it wasn't for the fog, there would have been no George Washington, no Battle of Trenton, no surrender of Cornwallis, and America would never existed. This country is the only country in the world that was ever founded on the purpose of freedom to serve God as you see fit. In one of King Clement's prophecies, he said that God chose Israel to be his blessing to the world, meaning through Jesus Christ, I believe. But no other nation chose God but America, and God is not done with America yet. I firmly believe this. And if you don't, I don't care. It's my belief. I'm entitled to it, at least for now. Hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. Batten down the hatches. Because God's about to move in a way we haven't seen in our lifetime. Maybe a lifetime of lifetimes. I don't know. But when it happens, it will be unmistakable. Because you don't think the world noticed when the Red Sea destroyed Pharaoh's army. You don't think the world noticed when Cyrus walked into Babylon, the most impenetrable city ever. The world will notice when God takes down the new world order of things. Today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, I don't know. Will Donald Trump remain in the White House? I don't know. But my God is greater. And no matter the cost, I will stand with God. No matter the cost, I will stand as a patriot. I will not give up my rights for comfort and convenience. I will not give up the God-given rights that we were given this country for safety and security. I will defend them and defend you till I can't breathe anymore. How many of y'all with me? Hang in there, brothers and sisters, because I got to go to work. So you guys have a great day. Please share this video. Maybe somebody else needs the encouragement. But know that God is not done with us yet. He hasn't brought us this far to just bring us this far. He never lets you down. It may not come when you want it. It may not come how you want it, but it comes. It may not see it the way you think it should be, but it will be the way it needs to be. "400 years the Israelites tarried in captivity for the Pharaoh before Moses came along, and they begrudgingly went with him." They weren't happy about it. I don't know what's coming, but it's going to be fun. One way or another. You guys have a great day. I have got to get off here. I've been on here too long. You got to talk to y'all later. Hey, follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Parler. Follow me on MeWe. I put the links in my page because I might not be here too much longer. Just because, they don't like patriots on Facebook. You guys have a great day.